Hello, everybody. Welcome to MORE-VILLE, ORVILLE, episode 9. I'm your co-host, Mike Allen, and I'm joined by G.I. Jolie.
Hello, everyone.
And Champ Ian.
Hi, guys. How you doing? Everybody staying warm? Having fun shoveling cars out of snow today?
Oh, yeah.
My car was stuck in my driveway for 2 days straight. I just got it out. Yeah. Anyway. It was funny, though, because my nephews actually came over to help dig it out. And I was like,
His nephews are 6 and 10.
Yeah. I was like, I was stuck. I couldn't drive anywhere for 2 days. And my little nephew said, but could you walk anywhere? And I'm like, busted. I'm just too lazy to walk, so you guys have to drive here and help me. Anyway. We're going to talk about the ORVILLE, which we all love. And we are going to talk about, which I have officially decided is my favorite episode so far, Cupid's
Really?
Dagger. Yeah, I'll talk about why later, but G.I. Julie, I believe we're going to switch it up and you're going to summarize this one, right?
Yeah, I fought Ian for it and I won.
Oh, she won handily. My ego is bruised.
But just this ego. That's it. Okay, so episode 8? 9?
9.
I've already messed it up.
Off to a fantastic start.
Terrible. Episode 9, Cupid's Dagger. So it begins. Everyone's in the mess hall. Kelly is singing. Is she singing Journey? It doesn't matter.
I don't remember, but it's something really cheesy. Yeah.
I believe it is Journey.
Yeah, so she's singing, and then up next is Mortis, and just as he is about to open his mouth and croon the very first notes of Celine Dion's "My Heart Will Go On" from the hit film Titanic, they get a transmission. They're interrupted when the transmission comes through from Admiral Halsey. The crew of the ORVILLE is called into action. We don't get to hear the glorious tones, but that's fine. I think we'll be treated to them later. So everyone's on the bridge. Halsey tells them that they are needed specifically, their ship to host an archaeologist. They'll be needed. Their labs will be needed by an archaeologist who is there to examine a piece of pottery that is found on a planet. The planet itself, over time, there's 2 species that live on the planet, the Navarians and the Bruidians. They're at the brink of war again, and in order to prevent the war from kind of really destroying the planet, this piece of pottery, this artifact, the archaeologist will examine the artifact to see, so far it's the oldest artifact they've ever found on the planet, to see which species the artifact belongs to, thus telling us who has rightful ownership over the planet. Turns out the archaeologist, the only person who specializes in potentially Bruidian or Valerian. Wrong. That's wrong. In these artifacts is Derulio, the Retepsian that we see at the beginning of the season, that Ed finds in bed with Kelly. The reason why their marriage has ended. So it's kind of like a comedy of errors, where throughout the episode, Kelly seems to be falling more and more. She seems to become infatuated with Derulio. And Ed is kind of jealous, but then Ed suddenly also seems to be interested in Derulio as well, which is very, very strange. Everybody else on the ship notices it, and Ed and Kelly kind of go head to head for Derulio's affection. While that's happening, they're supposed to be hosting the ambassadors for they're supposed to play ambassador to the Navarians and the Meridians. So there's like a party from each species on the ship. And they're kind of waiting for the results of this this artifact. But because Ed and Kelly are busy fighting over Derulio, they're ignoring
right.
the potential war that's happening on a planet. A lot of this is just one subplot. And comedy. There's like another subplot where like Yaphet, who from the beginning has kind of been trying to ask Claire Finn, our ship's doctor, on a date. And she has been like, you know what? I'm not interested. But for some reason, this time she's interested. She's so interested, in fact, that we get the most disgusting CGI scene I've ever seen. There is full frontal nudity. I mean, Yaphet.
Oh yeah.
We see it. If there is such what I don't even know what Yaphet's species is, but if there was such a thing as pornography on their planet, this would be it. You see it. It's there. Alara goes looking for the doctor because suddenly she's not answering beacons. And it turns out her and Yaphet have just been having sex inside like the medical lab. It's insane. Okay, so anyway, Bortus doesn't know what's going on. Isaac doesn't get what's going on. Everyone is baffled, and the episode kind of culminates at the Bruidians and the Navarians are going to kill each other. They've had it. They call in more ships. They're not waiting for the results. They don't care. They're going to go to war. And they figure out that Derulio is in heat. And there's a pheromone that he secretes by touch that is causing people to act crazy. They are able to get the ambassadors for both species in the same room, find an excuse for Derulio to touch them, and then they end up wanting to marry. And they come back into the room and they are like, no, we couldn't wait. The news is too big. This is awesome. And they're holding hands and they're holding each other. And they tell each of their, ships in the sky. They're like, that's it. We're calling off this war. We don't need to fight. We're getting married. And that is how... we'll get into more detail later, but that is essentially how they're able to resolve the subplot that comes from the planetary union. And also, in a roundabout way, the subplot with Derulio and Kelly and Ed.
So, yeah, earlier I said this is my favorite episode, and it is, and I'll tell you why. You could argue that other episodes are more important or better plots or blah, 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 but I feel like this episode was the one where the show, Seth MacFarlane is so at home in this episode because it is comedy, right? Not only was the writing great, but his acting was great. I thought he was so funny in this episode.
Yeah.
And even though it was a comedy episode, I was on the edge of my seat just waiting to see what was going to happen next and where the plot was going to go, even though I've already seen it before. And again, the way that they slowly... the whole point of the show is that Seth MacFarlane wants to kill Rob Lowe's character. He goes to fire him, and then while he's there, from the beginning of the episode to the end of the episode, he completely does a 180 and ends up asking him out for drinks. And Seth MacFarlane's acting is like, so what? Maybe we can grab a drink and just drinks, okay, well, I'll see you later. And you're watching the episode and thinking, where is this episode going? Well, it turns out that Seth MacFarlane starts to fall for this guy. They end up going on a date. Then they end up in bed together. And it's just outrageous humor. And I don't know. I thought this episode was nearly perfect. I loved it. What'd you guys think?
Well, full disclosure, I was rewatching episodes last night, and I fell asleep just as this episode started.
Darn it!
And for whatever reason, I have very little this episode did not leave much of an impact on me. I do remember feeling a little creepy about the whole pheromone aspect of things. That Derulio, he knows this. He knows what effect his species has on other people, and I'm sure that other people know what I don't know. It seemed to be a pretty big thing to be a surprise to everyone. And it was kind of important, I think, as the show started to take a more serious tone, to soften. I think Jolie made a point about this a few episodes ago, where it does a bit of a disservice to Kelly's character that she's just the adulteress, like for so many episodes. Like that's her character. She's just the guy that cheated on the captain. And now that the show's becoming a little bit more serious, you got to soften that a little bit, and to take that decision making out of her hands, it sort of absolves her of the infidelity in a way. Yeah. But I'm not sure that I like the way that it was done, because there seems to be, like, in my brain, there's a consent issue there, right? Like, did she consent at all to this relationship with Derulio, or was he leveraging this pheromone of his to be able to get whatever woman he wants, right? Because he knows what effect he has on people. And I think that that's kind of glossed over a little bit, and that made me a little uncomfortable.
Well, go ahead, Julie.
I mean, like, even at the end of the episode where he's leaving, they're in the shuttle bay, Mercer and Kelly and Derulio, and Kelly makes a point of asking Derulio, hey, a year ago, I mean, I don't want to keep bringing it up, but like a year ago when we were together, were you in heat then as well? And it cuts to Derulio's face, and it is so suspect. And he goes, maybe. It's so gross. And now that you bring it up, the whole issue of consent and stuff, it's like, no, he absolutely 100% knew.
Yeah.
And right now, he's not telling you that he was, because he was. And
whether or not he was at the time, I still think that he has a duty of care to inform potential partners that he has this, I don't know, I'm not going to call it an ability necessarily, but he has this idiosyncrasy where at certain times he is chemically irresistible, and there's nothing you can do. It is very close to plying someone with alcohol. In fact, one might say that it's worse than that, because it acts directly on a sexual attraction. He should be informing people of this. Everyone should have known, right? Everyone should have known, but nobody knew, and that's creepy.
Well, and then the other thing there's one more step where at the end, Ed says, "Wait a minute! If this was a year ago." If this happens once a year and you cheated on me a year ago, then is it possible, Kelly, that when you cheated on me that he was in heat? And she says, maybe. Or no, am I mixing that up? Or did he say it in front of them? I don't remember.
He says it in front of them. Kelly asks Derulio. Derulio says it in front of them, which causes Ed to question, you know what I mean? Because he's so wholehearted. The reason why he's not with Kelly anymore is because she cheated on him.
So let's break it.
As far as Kelly knows, she also cheated on him. So
basically, what it comes down to is Rob Lowe's character raped Kelly, and now he's raped Mercer. That's essentially what's happened, right?
Yeah, basically.
Now the thing is I have no issue with that. The only thing I have issue with is why are there no consequences for his character, right? Like he shouldn't just be allowed now to roam free. I mean, I think that's the only weakness of how the plot is resolved, in my opinion. Other than that, I think it's fine. Yeah,
they also, I think it's also funny, speaking of plot holes, that they address that there will be a plot hole when the, I don't know, because it wears off. The whole attraction thing will wear off, which means the Navarians and the Bruidians will probably start to war again when they realize, when their leaders realize they don't want to be married.
In fact, the war will probably be exacerbated because they're both going to be horrified with what they've just done, and they're going to retaliate, probably each thinking that the other was up to some sort of chicanery, because what other explanation could there be?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, just in case anyone was wondering, the vessel that they find, or the artifact that they find, Derulio does figure out that actually it's a birthing vessel, and it contains the DNA of both species, so both species have equal claim over the planet.
See, that's the thing. That's this episode. I think that the subplot worked with the main plot, and they kind of, like you said, resolved each other. I thought it was so well done. On top of the comedy was great. I thought Seth MacFarlane was great. You know, I made a note before we started rolling about the part where Malloy comes in. He's like, wait, it sounds like you're really into this guy. Like, it sounds like you want to bang him. Bang, be banged. Why do we always have to put labels on everything? Like, it's so freaking funny the way it plays out. I don't know. I thought it was outrageous. I thought Seth MacFarlane did such a good job. Then when he's in bed with Rob Lowe, and I thought he was hilarious there. Like when he walks into the bar and he sees Rob Lowe across the bar and he kind of waves at him. And he just doesn't give a shit about his diplomatic mission. It's just, and also, it's also funny that once again, Ed and Kelly are off doing whatever, and Alara and Bortus have to kind of pick up the pieces after them. I think that's funny. Now, granted, on a real military ship, if this was Star Trek, that could never happen. It's too over the top. But for this show, I think it works. I think it's hilarious. You know? The fact that isn't there a point where they're like, wait a minute, where are the captain and Kelly? And then they find them. I don't remember what happens, but is that the point where Mercer's in bed with Rob Lowe and then Kelly is sitting on her couch crying and eating ice cream, right?
Yeah.
Oh, so funny. I thought that was great. I was laughing out loud through this entire episode. And we didn't even mention at the beginning when Bortus is about to do karaoke, before he gets cut off, which is funny in itself, he's getting ready to sing and some of the crew members are kind of like making fun of him or laughing.
No, I think they're cheering him on.
Or they're egging him on. And then he looks over at them, you will be silent! And again, it's like, it's so funny. It's like Worf, but so much funnier. Like, oh my God. Actor... Sorry, go ahead.
Because he had practiced.
Right.
And Gordon Malloy is like, he's like, this is something Malloy has taught me. And then the music kicks on and it's My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion.
Right. Oh, it's so funny. Anyway. Yeah. And the other thing too is, I think another reason I love this episode is because it was on the ship. Not to say that they shouldn't go off the ship, but when they go off the ship, it's more Twilight Zone, Black Mirror. And when they're on their ship, I feel like they're more comfortable doing like their comedy stuff. So I just loved everything about the show, this episode. I think the only thing I would say, if I were to add anything to the plot, the fact that it was Kelly and Mercer and Rob Lowe's character, and then we had Yaphet and Dr. Claire, it would have been nice because of the rule of threes to have a third couple involved somehow, you know? Because it's like, oh, well, Kelly and Mercer are affected, and so is Yaphet and Dr. Claire, but no one else, right? Because the episode is called Cupid's Dagger, but there's a classic episode of Star Trek called Cupid's Arrow, right?
Yes, which this episode gets compared to, I think, frequently.
I just think it would have been better if it would seem like it was affecting everyone, or at least one more couple or one more person. But anyway, that's just me.
Oh no, sorry. It gets compared to Journey to Babel. Sorry.
Right.
Is that an original? Oh yes, that's an original series.
Yeah.
Episode.
Well, I mean, the one thing that this episode did do was give us more Yaphet, which we always need.
Right.
Yeah, and who is the character that we're going to focus on for this episode of MORE-VILLE? So
yes, let's talk about Yaphet. So Yaphet is the word gelatinous?
Yeah.
Yes.
He is basically made out of jello. He looks like a big pile of jello with a mouth, right? He's an alien. In this episode, this is the one where we learn that he sleeps in what would you call it? Like, not like a tub, but kind of like
a tray.
A square tray is where he sleeps. He is able to have sexual relations with the Doctor by enveloping her naked body in his body and presumably penetrating her in some way. I don't know. But
you didn't have to say it, Mike.
Yeah. And obviously this is played for comedy, but he is a mouth. That's all he is a mouth. And he's voiced by Norm Macdonald, who's no longer with us, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But he did finish his voice acting for season 3, so we'll get to see one more season of him. Yeah.
That was going to be a question I was going to ask. That's good news.
Right. So anyway, I love his character. I mean, I'm assuming Norm Macdonald's just friends with Seth MacFarlane, and, you know, they kind of just let him do what he wants. I don't know. So I think he's great. What do you guys think?
I think he's typical Norm Macdonald. I don't think Norm Macdonald can screw anything up.
Right.
I think it's his greatest voice acting role since Pigeon in Mike Tyson Mysteries, and I think his character, like his CGI, it's a little unfortunate. It's a little low rent sometimes.
Right.
I can see what they're kind of going. Am I going to try and compare him to Odo on Deep Space Nine?
Mm.
No, they guess they both sleep in a bucket, but he's self-effacing. I don't know. He's I'm sorry, Jolie, you go on.
Well, I mean, I think it's hilarious. Again, like just a bunch of, to quote Mike, or to use a term that Mike has frequented on this show, this ship is full of a bunch of jabronis who made it through Starfleet. Like, again, Yaphet is not just gelatinous humor. He is the senior most engineer of the Orville.
Right.
Like, and the chief engineer being Steve Newton. Like, it's so crazy that this is the crew, and like when they have to be serious and they have to use their smarts to get us scenarios, they are serious. But like, I look at this crew and it's like every engineer that I went to school with, they fuck. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're always down to party. This whole damn crew. And Yaphet is like no exception. I think it's in a later episode where we see maybe a little bit more. There's like a portrait of his brother, or is it this episode?
This is his brother.
Yeah.
And then she's like, oh, go ahead.
So she's like, oh, Claire, because here's the thing. He gets stepped on or stepped through by Derulio. So he absorbs some of his pheromone. And then when he goes to touch Claire, or he touches her or gives her something that he has touched, that's how he transmits the pheromones. And that's why Claire is suddenly attracted to him. I mean, that's a pretty fun plot, like, way to get that in.
Right.
Because I was like, what the hell is happening? She's showing up to Yaphet's quarters in lingerie, practically. Also, that costume was very space drama. I loved it. But like, she walks up to this portrait of him and he goes, well, that was a picture of my mother and me, but it's now a picture of me and my brother. Like,
yes, that's funny.
Through mitosis, that's now a picture of me and my brother. Like, that's just hilarious.
Yep, very funny.
Yeah.
Also, I found out that the way that Norm Macdonald got this role was Seth MacFarlane called up Norm Macdonald and said, hey, Norm, you want to be a blob? And Norm Macdonald replied, hell yeah, I'll be a blob. And that was it. 10-second phone call, hung up. Yeah, I mean, stuff like this is great. I just, again, it is nice to see that an alien on the ship is not necessarily humanoid. That's actually one of the things, my least favorite things about Star Trek. I mean, obviously budget constraints, but as the Star Trek sequels went on and we got into like TNG and DS9, I really didn't like the fact that, well, I mean, let's use our imagination, guys. Are all aliens just going to look exactly like a human, but with little spots on the side of their head or little bumps on their nose? Like, get a little more creative. But okay, fine. I like the fact that they just went all out with Yaphet and was just like, no, he's just a big pile of jello, you know?
Yeah.
So
And like Ian had said, like his character kind of suffers from like not the greatest CGI, which I agree with. But for TV CGI, it's not bad.
yeah, it's fine.
It's not distractingly bad, and the fact that his character is played for comedy, you don't take it seriously to begin with, so it doesn't really make that big a deal.
Yeah, and honestly, I thought that maybe when I first watched episodes of the ORVILLE for the very first time ever, I was like, oh crap. They made the CGI character, 1, voiced by Norm Macdonald, 2, the funniest thing about this freaking ship. And because he's CGI, we probably won't see a lot of him. Like, they won't spend the extra money to animate him, so we're going to get less of him. Let's just say we got a lot of him this episode. They blew their budget on this episode.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah. Do you know what's really funny too? A couple episodes we talked about Lamar as a character. Like, we see Yaphet less, and Yaphet's more of a character than John Lamar.
Yeah, I have to agree. You're right. You're right. But anyway, so yeah, like I said, this is probably my favorite episode. Like, again, I could argue about what episode is the best, but this is the episode that I enjoyed watching the most, I think. And Ian, I know you're doing your rewatches, so I how come I can't think of the word? Encourage you to rewatch this one.
I definitely will.
Awesome.
I definitely will.
All right. So yeah, I guess that wraps up our review of, what's this one called again?
Cupid's Arrow.
Cupid's Dagger.
Cupid's Dagger.
Yes, Cupid's Arrow is this episode of Star Trek, which has nothing to do with this series. Anyway, all right, so there you go. You can find every episode of MORE-VILLE, ORVILLE on anywhere you can find podcasts, right? Be sure to leave comments, discuss, questions, anything. We'd love to hear from our listeners. And judging by the amount of feedback we got, there's at least 2 or 3 million of you. So, yeah, we look forward to hearing from you. Anyway, I guess that's it. I want to thank you guys for joining me again. This has been fun.
Absolutely.
Yes, it has, as always.
Yeah.
All right.
Wait to get to that last episode. Ooh.
Yes. There's a few more episodes to go for season 1, and then we're going to do season 2, and then we'll be caught up for season 3. So keep listening. And yes, we should also point out that our sign-off comes from Norm Macdonald's character, Yaphet. And with that, there's more where that came from.